it was just like a really indescribable love. It became kind of like a toxic thing because I loved him too much to let him go. Wait for that person that you know is gonna really guard your heart and love you for who you are. Like, he was my best friend. We were gonna get married. That's when everything kind of changed and everything went downhill. It's super important to pick who you're gonna date. Those people will shape the rest of your life. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I am so glad Vlogmas is over. It was literally so hard, but I'm really proud of myself for doing it. So thanks to everyone that watched all the episodes. But today I'm going to be talking about a really personal topic, and I haven't spoken about it because I didn't want to invade anyone else's privacy, but at the same time it's like a part of my life. Definitely wanted to share it just because, I don't know, it kind of has shaped me into the person that I am. Like, I feel like once you know the story, it kind of gives you a better understanding of my dating life and stuff like that. So I'm gonna talk about my first real relationship. Are you ready for this story? This story starts when I was 18 years old. So I was actually here in Mexico City, going to high school, and it was my senior year. And I remember I came across this Instagram profile and I was like, dang, this guy is so hot. Like, I was like, oh, he is fine. So I then saw that he was friends with Camille, which is now my best friend. So I was like, you know what? We have a mutual friend. Like, this is cool. This is fine. And so I remember I ended up like reaching out to him, and I think like I slid into his DMs. After that, we kind of just connected and we talked every day. And I mean, I had never met him before. So this was just strictly like through the internet. A week and a half went by, and I remember he told me, he was like, hey, like, I really like you. I've never liked someone like this. So I know that I really, really do like you. I was like, oh my God, that's sweet. So it just so happened that spring break was coming up. So I ended up going to Dallas for spring break, and that's where I officially met him. I remember like our first day, we went to see Spring Breakers, which was like the worst movie ever. I think we went out like a few more times, and I like really got to know him a little bit. But I think at this point it was just kind of like a little fling. Like, I liked him and I think he liked me, but it wasn't like anything like that serious. So after that week had passed, I was like, hey, I'm going back to Mexico. You know, where do we stand basically? And I remember he was like, well, girl, like, you're in high school, you know, maybe like once you graduate high school, you know, I'll date you. And I was like, okay, that's understandable, because he was 3 years older than me, which is not a lot, but I guess like when you're in high school and then you're in college, it's like a little bit weird, right? I was like, okay, that's fine. So I ended up, you know, going back to Mexico, finishing my semester. And I remember he didn't really talk to me after that. We were just kind of like cool on Instagram, but like it was just like that little fling and whatever. I remember then summer came around. But that summer when I went back to Dallas, I was going to spend the whole summer there. So he kind of like crept back in. He was like messaging me and putting little emojis under my pictures. And that's when I went back to Dallas. And I remember he was like, hey, do you have any plans on this day? And I was like, oh no, why? And he was like, well, do you want to go to like this concert with me? And so guys, I mean, if you're from Dallas and you've gone to the Jexa Pavilion, you're a little bit ratchet, okay? I don't care what anyone says. So I remember like our first kind of like big deal was that concert in the summer. And I think we went to see like Lil Wayne or something. And I remember it was him, and it was his brothers and sister-in-law, and I think like some other friends. And so we ended up all going, like we had a blast, like it was fun. And so that was like, you know, the first time like we kind of had seen each other after a while. And so after that, I remember we kind of hung out that whole summer. We went on dates. I just could not contain myself. Like, I remember my heart would be like so fast and I would spend hours getting ready. But we had just connected. And so everything was going great until I had to like break the news to him that, hey, like, I'm sorry, like, I'm not going to be able to stay. So like, I totally understand if you don't want to date me. Like, it's fine. Like, I'll just go back and we'll figure it out like later on. And I just remember he was like, no, like, it's okay. Like, I really like you. Like, I want to wait for you. And I mean, basically he was like, I still want to date you, basically, even though it would be a long distance relationship. And for me, I thought that was like so sweet because I was like, he didn't have to do that. Like he could have been like, okay, bye, peace. But I think that summer we really, had connected, and I think we really liked each other. So yeah, we ended up dating, throughout that fall semester. I think I went in October to visit him, and then he came to Mexico City and met my family. And then after that, he kind of broke up with me. And for me at that point, I was like totally fine. I was like, okay, deuces. Because if someone wasn't going to respect my boundaries and what I thought was like okay, then I didn't want to be with them. I didn't have to be with anyone, but if I was going to be with someone, like I would want them to respect my boundaries. So for him, it was like, okay, this is kind of a little too much, so I don't think it's going to work out. I kind of was like falling for him, but I still had a guard up because I was like, I just did not want to be hurt. And so whatever, after he kind of broke up with me, I was like, okay, whatever. And then I ended up going to college. So this is when I went back to, I know that's a lot of going back and forth, but I ended up going back to Dallas for college in the spring semester. So it was like January. At this time, I lived with my best friend at her house with her parents because she was in Austin going to UT. And so she had like her extra bedroom. And so I was staying there because it was really close to my college, like literally like 10 minutes. So I was like, okay, this works out perfectly, like yay. So I moved back to Dallas, and he slowly crept back into my life again. And at this point, I was like, you know what? Like this guy, he keeps going back and forth. Like I don't want to do this. And also in the back of my head, I was like, he's not a believer. So I think it's best if we just like stay friends, because at that point, I really did not want to compromise like my relationship with God for a guy. And I mean, even now, I'm never going to do that. So for me, it was just like really hard because I really liked him and I like loved his company and like who he was as a person. So I wanted to be friends with him, but I did not want to date him. So in the back of my head, I'm like, I'm not going to date him. Like, stick strong, girl. At that point, I didn't have a car to go to college. So it was either my friend would pick me up or my best friend's mom would take me. So sometimes like he would come really early in the morning and I would like make breakfast for us. And like we would watch a show or two. And then he would take me to college. So it was like the sweetest thing ever that he would like be willing to pick me up or like get up extra early, just to like hang out with me and then take me to school. And so we did that for a little bit. And I remember like one time he tried to kiss me and like I moved away because I was like, oh my God, no. Like we're friends, but I do not want to date you. Like I didn't say that to him, but I remember like thinking that. And so it wasn't until like February came around. So February is a very special month because it's my birthday and it's also Valentine's Day. And so February came around and I was kind of texting a friend, a guy friend from high school. And I think he thought we were talking because he invited me to go somewhere with him on Valentine's Day. So I was like, oh crap, what does that mean? I think he thinks we're talking. And so at that point, I just remember texting him and I was like, hey, like my friend wants to go out with me, but I like shut it down. I think he made like a comment saying like, oh, so are you like talking to two people? And I was like, no, like he's just my friend. I don't know why he invited me, but like obviously I want to hang out with you. And he was like, oh, okay, cool. And so I think that's when we were like, oh shoot, like this is real again. And I remember that Valentine's Day, he came over to the house and he knocked on my door and he got me chocolate covered strawberries. But the thing was that he had made these strawberries, guys, like from his own little hands. So for me, I was like, that is so sweet. I think he also got me flowers, but I was like, oh my God, that is so sweet. Also because I love food. So get me food and I'm happy. But I was like, oh my God, that is so cute and sweet, because for me, it's not really about gifts and like being extravagant. It's just about like the little details and like doing things that I'm going to appreciate. Even though he never really asked me like officially to be his girlfriend. But I think from that point forward, we kind of like knew that we liked each other and we wanted to be with each other. Yeah, I remember then March came around and I went to Mexico for spring break. The day before I left, I just remember like the very strange things I remember. But I remember the day before I left for spring break to Mexico, we went to get tacos. I told him I really wanted street corn. I was like, oh my God, I really want street corn. And he was like, okay, let's go get it. So we went to the street corn, but like it was February, so of course it was cold. And I was like, dang, there's like a really big line out there. And he was like, it's okay, like I'll go get the corn. So I stayed in the car, like nice and warm, and he went and stood in line for me. Like it was a really long line just to get me street corn. And for me, I was like, oh my God, he's the one. And then from there, kind of like our love story started to like unravel. And of course, like it wasn't always a perfect relationship. I think in the beginning of any relationship, it's kind of hard because you're getting adjusted to like each other's personalities, and you're getting adjusted to like each other's boundaries, and you have to set those boundaries, and you have to let the other person know like where you cross the line or stuff like that. And so I think in the beginning it was a lot of I don't know, it was like a bumpy road until we kind of like figured each other out, and then it was kind of all like up from there. For me, I think once someone is like loyal to me, I'm like a super loyal person. And so, you know, we would hang out all the time. His family, you know, started to become my family like slowly. And there came a point, and I think it was around May, where I was like, okay, we need to talk. And we ended up going to like this like lake nearby. And I remember like at that point I was super stressed with college, and I hated not, you know, like having a car and being broke. I mean, everything that you are in college, like I hated it. And I think I was having like a real like panic attack. So yeah, I remember I was like, so I think I'm going to go back to Mexico because I kind of hate, you know, being here and being like broke and everything. I don't know. It's just like when you're far away from your home and your family, everything is like super like it's a shock kind of. Like I'd never been away from home, so I was literally living like in a different country. Even though I was raised in Dallas, I was living in a different country. So it was just a lot for my 19-year-old self. I remember he was like, well, you know, I don't want you to leave because I don't want to just throw away everything that we've like kind of built till now. And I remember I like sobbed super ugly. It was probably like the ugliest cry I've ever done in my life, I swear. And I probably looked hideous crying. And I remember he just hugged me. And like, that's the first time he had said, I love you. Like and I was like, wait, what? Like, I was like, did I hear correctly? And for me, I thought like that was just like such a perfect moment. I knew he loved me regardless of him saying it or not. That even though that was the first time he had said it, I knew he loved me by his actions, by everything that he would do for me. He was just such a caring person that I felt that love. So for him to just say that, like, it was just such a nice gesture. But for me, I kind of felt safe, like, after that. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to stick it out. I'm going to stay. And, like, I'm going to make it work with him. So I think at that point, obviously, like, you're young. So you kind of start making someone your everything in a way. And you start kind of, like, being with that person all the time because that's, like, your safety net. Then that December break, I was going to go to Mexico for the holidays, obviously. So I was like, hey, like, do you want to come? So I was like, if you come, you know, we'll go to the beach. Like, it'll be fun. You'll get to know me on a better level because I'll be with my family. Like, you'll get to see how my family is because, like, if you marry me, that's who you're going to marry too. So I remember he ended up coming with me. And then that New Year's, we ended up going to the beach with my family and my brother. Well, it was my parents, my brother, and my cousin, and then us two. So, like, you think about it and you're like, oh my God, yeah, beach trip. Like, how fun. But it was like the total opposite. It was actually a nightmare. It was literally a nightmare. It's just not the same dating someone than when you're like with them 24/7. And I'm sure that's what marriage is like. Like, you're with that person 24/7. Like, you never get a break from them. He was like an introvert, so he needed space to himself or else he like would be in a bad mood. So when we were together for like 2 weeks, it was a little bit stressful, but more so when we ended up going to the beach because the second day on our trip, I ended up cutting myself with some coral in the ocean. And I remember it hurt so bad, but I did not realize how deep I had cut myself until I got out of the ocean and I saw my foot and I saw all the blood that was like coming out. And like I could almost see like my bone. And so I remember I got 6 stitches, and after that, I was not able to walk. I had to be on crutches. So like imagine being on crutches at the beach. Like how does that work? It doesn't. And so it was just the worst. Like I really couldn't do anything. Like I couldn't be in the ocean with him. I couldn't go to the pool. Like I had to lay down the whole time. I was kind of in a bad mood. I couldn't do anything. We ended up, just spending that New Year's. We ended up going back to Mexico City. And then we ended up going back to Dallas. When we actually got back to Dallas, we like did not speak to each other for like a whole week. I think we needed a break from each other. And I remember he ended up like contacting me like after, and he was like, you know what, like I apologize, like I was being kind of, I want to talk about it. And so we ended up talking about it, and I was like, you were kind of rude to me on that trip, like my foot was hurting, like you were just being mean to me. And he was like, well, you were stressing me out and all of this. And I forgot the trip started bad because he was supposed to leave like January 3rd or something back to Dallas on a plane, but I ended up booking his ticket wrong, so he lost like $400, and I felt so bad, and he made me cry about it. But he ended up having to drive back with us to Dallas, so he hated that part, and he hated me for it. And so it was just a super stressful trip. Anyway, that was in January. February came around, and so it was almost a year. We had been dating almost a year, and that's when everything kind of changed and everything went downhill. I got like a DM from this one guy, and he was like, dude, your boyfriend has been texting my girlfriend and like inappropriate stuff and whatever. And I was like, no, that can't be. But I remember earlier that day, he had told me to block this guy that had just followed me, which was the guy that told me about his girlfriend. And so I was like, well, that seems fishy. Like, why are you telling me to block this person, And like, he lied, and he was like, oh, he's just a stalker. So I didn't block him, and that guy ended up DMing me and sent me all this like information, and he sent me screenshots and a whole bunch of stuff. And so I was like, okay, this is like too real, But in my head, I was like, he would never hurt me. Like, he would never do anything to hurt me. Like, I know he loved me. Like, he was my best friend. We were going to get married. And so to me, I was like, this can't be. But, like once I saw the receipts, I ended up like screenshotting everything, and I sent it to him. And I was like, so is this why you wanted me to block this guy? And at that point, I honestly was waiting for like the biggest apology, because he had been cheating on me for like a while. And I think all he said was like, yeah, that's true. Like, I'm so sorry. It's like, seriously, is that it? That's like your apology? Like a text? Like, you're not even going to call me? And at that point I was like, okay, bye. This is over. Like, I don't know what you did, but it's done. Like, we're done. Like, it's over. And I think after that, he was like, oh crap. Like, she's being real. He was like, no, like, I'm so sorry. Like, he kept texting me, and it was like these like long apologies. But I was like, no, like, you can't, I couldn't even trust him at that point. But I was in shock. Like, I wasn't crying or anything. I was just in shock of what was happening. I really never thought like he was going to do anything to hurt me. But it ended up happening, and it ended up being true. And for me at that point, like, I was just waiting for like a real apology. Like, I was waiting for him to show up at my door. I was waiting for him to like apologize to my face, and he never did. So for me, that was the most hurtful part of the breakup, because I was like, bro, he's not even going to try to win me back. Like it's over for him. And honestly, I think if he would have really like fought hard enough, I probably would have taken him back, because I loved him so much and I really wanted my world. Like, I really thought we were going to be together till the end of days. It was February, so my birthday was coming up, and I remember on my birthday, I woke up and I just like started crying, because I was like, I just turned 20 years old. I'm 2 decades old. I just broke up with my boyfriend that I thought I was going to marry like maybe in a year. That summer, I went back to Mexico, because I was like, I hate being here in Dallas by myself, literally by myself, Because at that point, like, me being with him, like, he was my whole life. Like, he was my family. And so when I broke up with him, like, it was just like not having a family all over again. And so I ended up going back to Mexico again. And we didn't speak for like a year. We didn't speak for a year. I blocked all contact from him because it was honestly really hurtful. And I don't think I really got over it until like after a year. After a year had passed, I was in Mexico, and I remember he reached out to me and he was like, hey, like, I see you with your blog, like, I'm so happy for you. And he was like, I'm so sorry, for what I did. I miss you or whatever. And I remember, like, I spoke to him and I was like, hey, like, how are you? For me, like, I got really happy when he reached out because I was like, we can be friends. And at that point, I was like, yeah, we'll be friends. Like, it's fine. I'm over it. Let's move on. Lo and behold, I go back to Dallas that summer, and I was only going to go to visit, and I ended up staying because I ended up getting a job. And so I remember we, like, hung out, and it was just, like, so amazing. Like, we would hang out all the time. We never did anything, but we just hang out all the time, and I just kind of relived our relationship again and how much I, like, loved being with him and spending time with him. And we would talk about each other's dates that we had been on. So, like, we were literally, like, best friends. But I think at some point there became, like, a blurred line. And it was, like, he started saying stuff like, thank you for waiting for me. Like, at the end of this, like, I want to marry you. He would send me flowers to my job. And so for me, that was just like, okay, like, what are we doing? Like, don't confuse me. Because I was fine being friends. But the fact that he was, like, starting to mix in my feelings in that and being, like, a little bit, like, confusing, it was kind of like, oh my God, like, I don't want to go into that trap again of, like, falling in love with him again. And so I remember I ended up going on a date with this one guy, and I ended up liking him a lot, and I was going out with him a lot, and it came to a point where I liked him, and I was like, you know what? I texted him, this guy. And I was like, hey, like, my feelings can't be this involved. Like, either I like this person, either I'm going to date this person, or if you truly want to be with me and date me, then you're going to date me. But I can't just be tossed around kind of like a girlfriend without the responsibilities. Because I just felt like he wanted me to be there because, like, I was just like a comfort for him. And he didn't want to feel alone, but at the same time, he didn't want a relationship. I kind of, like, gave him that ultimatum, and I thought he was going to choose me, and he ended up saying, it's okay, like, you can go and date him. I'm not ready to be in a relationship. And I think at that point, he was still trying to figure out his life, and he didn't know what he was doing really, which frustrated me because I was like, okay, if you're going to be the person I marry, like, I need you to figure out your life. Because at this point, I kind of already had my career, like, my job and everything. And, like, I kind of saw where my life was going. And with him, it was like I couldn't see really, like, clear the future. So I was like, well, I don't know how this is going to work. So I think it was just super frustrating for, like, both of us. Like, him on one end, I don't think, like, he figured out his life. Like, he was still trying to figure out who he was as a person. And I'm, like, the kind of person that's like, okay, go, set plans. And so it was just frustrating. We would kind of go back and forth even though we were not dating. We were just friends. But of course we loved each other. So I think we were just trying to figure it out. And it just came to a point where it's like, it couldn't be figured out anymore. Like, it became kind of like a toxic thing because I loved him too much to let him go. And I truly, at that point, I was like, I don't know what to do. Like, I'm trying to let go of him, but I can't. I just cannot. And that's when I remember my friend told me there's such things as soul ties. It's a real thing. And I was like, what's a soul tie? Like, I had no idea what a soul tie was. And she told me what it was. And I remember that day I went home and I cried and I prayed about it. And I was like, God, I want you to, like, break whatever it is that I have with this person that won't let me let go of him, because I need to move on with my life. And I think honestly from that, like, yeah, it wasn't just overnight, but it became a healing process where I was able to let go of him and let go of all the feelings I had for him and move on. I just remember falling in love with him because I knew that he had seen me at my worst. Like, he had seen moody Danny, he had seen stubborn Danny, he had seen proudful Danny, he had seen ugly Danny, all of me, and he still chose to be with me. He still loved me, and I knew he truly loved me for who I was. And, like, vice versa, like, I loved him for who he was and not what he could give me, or, you know, obviously, like, there was so many ups and downs. Like, I didn't care, and I know I was willing to fight for him, because I was willing to elope, guys. I was like, you know what? I was like, F it. Like, I don't even want to have a wedding. Like, I just want to get married. Like, if that's what you want and you want to love me forever, like, let's just get married. I remember, like, my whole family told him, like, she's super high maintenance. She's, like, rude sometimes. Like, they said all there was to say about me. And he was like, yeah, I know that already. Like, I want to be with her. For me, that's why I, like, just loved him so much, because I was like, wow, you, like, truly love me for me. Like, even from the first time we met each other when I was 18, like, there was such a connection that I had never felt with anyone. And from then on, like, even though it was on and off, like, there was always just a connection there. Even though we were different, we were very similar at the same time. He always made me laugh. He was so caring. Like, he was always there for me. Like, he made me feel like I was, like, he loved me above, you know, everything. And he was always going to be there for me, and felt like he was going to take care of me. And it's a love that, besides my, like, God and my parents, like, I had never felt before. And I don't know that I've ever felt like that loved. And so I think for me, I think that's why I always drew to him, because I was like, I think this is, like, love. I think, like, this is unconditional love, and I don't think I'm ever going to find this again. So, like, I can't let go of this person. And I think that was, like, really my mindset, even though there was, like, a lot of, like, a few red flags, and I knew deep down in my mind that it wasn't going to work out. I was still very attached to him, and I still wanted to make it work above all else, because I was like, dude, I'm never going to find a love like this ever again. I mean, to this day, there hasn't been a person that has changed my mind about that, you know, and if there is, I'll let you guys know, and I'll probably end up marrying that person. But until now, I just haven't felt that connection that I had with him, so it's super difficult for me to date. To be completely honest, I think love only comes in that intense, like, shape and form once in your lifetime. And, like, some people may disagree with me, but I truly believe that. I think, like, there's just, like, one person that, I don't know, I think you could have, like, soulmates, and then I think you could have, like, that one person that you intensely loved and, like, were willing to fight through anything and everything, and, you know, you wanted to spend the rest of your life with that person, and that was, like, your one love. And of course you go on with life and you love other people and marry them, and you love them in different ways, but I think there's, like, only, like, one, like, true, like, intense love. And I think for me it was him, and I don't know that I may love someone that same way. If I know deep down that I don't think they're ready for a relationship, or if I think they're just gonna be, like, playing around, like, I'm just not going to date them, you know? And I just don't think it's worth it for me to give my whole heart away like that again. I think people really do need to guard their hearts and, you know, just not give your heart away to everyone, because it's hurtful and people can hurt your heart, and then that makes your heart hard, and it makes you a very hard person because you don't want to be hurt. And so it's not good to be, like, giving your heart away to everyone. But I mean, when you are in a relationship and you do give your heart away, like, you trust them with your heart, and you want that person to never hurt you. And of course, everyone makes mistakes and they are going to hurt you at the end of the day, but you do want someone that's going to hold your heart very dearly and is going to take care of your heart. And I think that's all I really wanted. And so I did give, like, my heart away, and then, you know, obviously he ended up hurting me. But I think in relationships, as I have gotten older, it's like I don't want to give my heart away in that way until I know it's for sure someone that I want to marry, because I don't want to be hurt again. And I want my heart to be as whole and as wholesome and as pretty for the person that I marry. And so I think it's just super important to guard your heart above all else. And I mean, it's in the Bible, of course, but don't be giving a piece of your heart to everyone is what I would say. And like the biggest advice I give people is, you know, relationships are hard and relationships are difficult, but you don't want to just date anyone and everyone just because it's fun. Wait for that person that you know is going to really guard your heart and love you for who you are. And until that person comes, like, don't give your heart away again. It's super important to pick who you're going to date, because those people will shape the rest of your life. And they're going to teach you good things. They're going to teach you bad things. But whatever good or bad things they teach you, you're going to end up carrying that into the next relationship. So be very careful about that. But yeah, love you guys. Thank you so much for letting me share this story. It was a super personal story that I've never shared with anyone before. But I think now it's like, it's out there. And, you know, I think people can get to know me a little bit better, especially like in relationships and why I don't date as often. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys next time.